spiritual awakening, the most central theme that a being gravitates towards is their purpose, especially at a soul level. So today I'm going to be talking about what our purpose is, what purpose is, and at the end of this video, I will share with you what each being on Earth's purpose is at this time. Purpose isn't as clear-cut as many of us wish that it were when we're dealing with this type of concept because it's multifaceted. So there's a lot of different angles that we look at when we're talking about purpose. For instance, if we were to zoom all the way out and look at purpose from its largest and broadest perspective, we would see purpose differently than when it's zoomed in. And so purpose has layers to it, and the broadest angle or view that we would look at purpose from is as our creator being essence, because at our very core, we are creator beings. And so purpose from that level would be to explore our creation, our creator beingness. From a more zoomed in layer, it would start getting more technical. And then from each layer, the more we zoom in, it would become more detailed or more pixelated, if you will. And so since we are all creators and the creation simultaneously interacting and corresponding with one another, we need some sort of way to engage and interact with our exploration directly. And that's through purpose. So we create a purpose for ourselves in order to inject ourselves into the creation. So from another perspective, purpose is the medium that we use in order to engage with our own creation. Now, mind you, all of this is taking place at the broadest, most zoomed out level. So we're not going to really be always in touch with this truth. But as we zoom in more, we notice that purpose still is abstract, but it ends up becoming more substantial. So purpose will take on an overarching theme that we lay out beforehand for our life. And what that overarching theme will have something to do with what facet or what aspect of the landscape our soul wants to focus on or zoom in on. As you can imagine, the purpose that we set for our soul in one life will be different than what we set for ourselves in another life. They're not always going to reflect the same soul purpose, even though at the largest, broadest viewpoint, they will all reflect the fact that we are creator beings exploring our creation. So because reality is multifaceted, reality can multitask, meaning that we're not just going to have one exact purpose, even though we might have a very dominant soul purpose. We especially yearn to know our soul's purpose when we feel directionless during a spiritual awakening. Because the nature of spiritual awakenings can be so overwhelming, a lot of times we wish we could just cut to the chase and know exactly our purpose, and we feel that if we know that, we will be set on some path and have direction that will allow us to avoid being directionless or lost. But purpose isn't that detail-oriented, so purpose can't let us off the hook. For instance, we might want our higher self to just tell us what our purpose is, or for someone else to just tell us what our purpose is, so that then we know exactly what to do. What we want to hear is something very detailed. I'll give you an example. We want someone or our higher self to just tell us that our purpose is to start an organic skincare line, just as an example. Do you see how detailed that is? Do you see how that absolutely takes all of our free will out of the equation? If we were just meant beforehand to come into this reality and to get to the point where we realize that we're supposed to start an organic skincare line, and then we just follow suit with that. Rather than it being so detailed, what purpose is some sort of soul expression that then gets conveyed through whatever creative outlet that we use at whatever time. So really what we think is our purpose is actually the creative outlets that we choose with our own free will to utilize in order to express our purpose. So an organic skincare line might genuinely be how somebody expresses their soul's purpose, but their soul purpose at that level would be to help create a lot of awareness or consciousness within the collective. And they're doing that by creating conscious products to help infuse into the collective's consciousness. So you see how this is just an outlet a creative outlet that is being used in order to express the higher purpose, but it's not the purpose in and of itself. So we confuse our creative outlets for our purpose. And this is why we feel so disconnected from purpose in the first place. It's because we think that it's so detailed that we need to follow a certain path and we're going to screw it up if we don't do that and if we don't get that right. Before this life, many beings set a soul purpose for them to come into this reality and be the walking, breathing embodiment of what consciousness looks like, whether it's in a male form, whether it's in a female form, or whether they're holding space for both energies in once in whatever form that they came in with. And that is at a soul level, what purpose would look like in the most defined terms of what we call purpose at the soul level. So it's some overarching theme that is broad, but at the same time, not so broad that it's too vague to comprehend, right? It's comprehensible to be able to understand that at a soul level, we wanted to come in and be the healthy version, the aligned version of what these energies would look like. So from one layer or from one facet zoomed in of purpose, that's what many of our purpose is. But remember, it's multifaceted. So we're only talking about one layer right now. And that's for many of us to hold a template and an example of what the divine feminine looks like and what the divine masculine looks like. So that's what our soul purpose would look like from one facet or from one layer of reality. Many people's purpose at this time is to also be the embodiment of the harmony between the masculine and feminine energies within the individual. When we zoom in another layer into this reality, what we're going to find is that at the soul level, purpose there is going to be expressed as needing to reclaim whatever aspects of our energy field had priorly been lost or excluded from the totality of our soul. So in this level of soul purpose and reality, this is where healing becomes a very dominant theme in our journey. Another one of the most general layers of purpose that several beings have at this time is the purpose to raise the collective consciousness on this planet. But once again, do you see how raising the collective consciousness of this planet is a purpose and yet it's not detailed at all? That's because it's up to our own free will and our own creative essence to convey that purpose, that dominant theme, in whatever way that we do. It can be through art, it can be through activism, it can be through our spiritual practices, it can be through our job. It doesn't have to be, it can be through our hobbies. It can be through what excites us. It could also be through what pisses us off and enrages us. So all of these different things can be what guides us into expressing our purpose through whatever outlets we have available to us or that we create to become available to us. So a lot of awakening individuals are going to also be very called and compelled into creating new outlets and new platforms that once were not available or did not exist in order for us to express purpose through new facets. Because we are creating new systems of being that are meant to replace the outdated and old systems of being. So some people are going to be very called into creating these new platforms or these new channels. And what really that's doing is that's expressing a purpose at a soul level in order for more facets of purpose to be expressed. And all of this still falls under the category of the layer of purpose and the layer of reality that has to do with wanting to raise the collective consciousness here on Earth. Now, the aspect of purpose that every soul on Earth shares is that they want their power, whether they know it or not, whether they subconsciously are attuned to this or not. Every being wants to reclaim their power. But especially if you are going through a spiritual awakening, will you want to reclaim your power? Because a spiritual awakening has to do with awakening to our spiritual sovereignty. We are all sovereigns. And this is one of the deepest levels of truth that we access on our spiritual awakening journey. And so knowing in our very core that we are sovereign, free will, powerful beings, naturally we want to be in our power and step into our power. So even though everyone on Earth has a purpose of being in their power, it's very important for people in a spiritual awakening to be in connection and conscious of this truth, because it's going to release so much shame and it's going to release so many barriers or limitations that we accidentally placed on ourselves regarding how to express our purpose. There is no being that this does not apply to. Every single being going through a spiritual awakening wants to reclaim their purpose, and they're doing that through their intuitive abilities mainly. This is why so many people on a spiritual awakening journey want to activate their dormant gifts. It's because all of our dormant gifts, our psychic abilities, are a way of us to reclaim our power. And innately, on a soul level, we recognize and know that being separate from our gifts is somehow being separate from our power. And this is what we want to embody and that we secretly yearn for. It's absolutely fine that people feel disconnected from their higher self, disconnected from their psychic abilities, or disconnected from their power. But where there gets muddledness and confusion is when we think that that's wrong, or that we think that we're not supposed to be feeling that way. And that is just completely not true, because on a spiritual awakening journey, you're going to naturally want to reclaim your power, and it's going to be in the form mainly of our connection and our knowing and our psychic abilities and all of the things that we subconsciously understand is what power means to us. Now, why does this mean power to us? Why do we interpret this as power? It's because that's what will make us sovereign, and we truly yearn for our power because we truly yearn for our sovereignty. We want to be able to agree with someone or disagree with someone in our own authority, in our own core, not because we're dependent or reliant on others. And being able to be in our sovereignty will allow us to come from a space to where we're not dependent on others, we're not directionless, we don't feel lost. We can even feel comfortable in the not knowing if we know to not know at that time. That's the paradox of how powerful it is to be in our power and yet not necessarily need to know everything. So our power is so central and so innate to our purpose because ultimately that's what's going to give us the experience of true liberation and true freedom. Because of this, the universe supports us in our power. It wants to see us in our own sovereignty. But the journey to get there is going to take one of healing. And the reason why is because healing is what facilitates our ability to truly be ourselves. It's not because we're broken and we need to fix it to be ourselves. It's because through the journey or through the medium of healing, we actually become more of ourselves. And when we are more of ourselves, we are more sovereign. So it has to really do about being ourselves. So if being ourselves is that end conclusion, then from all of the different facets that purpose is perceived through, they can all be summed up as our purpose is to be ourselves. So being ourselves is being sovereign, is being free, is having power. And just by being yourself and being sovereign, you're gonna raise the collective consciousness of this planet. So all of the layers of purpose get addressed through this. Because purpose is so crucial during a spiritual awakening, let me know in the comments about anything specifically that you would like me to go into more detail about regarding purpose. I hope this has awakened your soul's purpose. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for higher dimensional guidance through spiritual awakenings. See you next time.